Well, it's a pivotal moment for Asia's giants. Prime Minister Narendra Modi meets President Xi Jinping today in Tianjin in just a couple of hours. That ignites a reset, well, one hopes, or one needs to wait and see, in India-China relations, which were strained by the 2020 Galwan clash. As US tariffs batter Indian exports and as tensions with Washington escalate over trade and geopolitical rifts, this SCO, or Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit, offers hope for economic revival, enhanced trade, and possibly LAC de-escalation.
That's right. The two countries have already been making very cordial noises towards each other, unprecedented, especially in the last 5 years. Remember that the two countries still have many divisions worth of army strength still massed along their eastern Ladakh border. And yet the two leaders, for the first time since 2019, but more importantly, for the first time, Vishnu, since the Galwan clash that you and I tracked from the ground in Ladakh, will be meeting. And the context, of course, for all of that is the huge trade and tariff turbulence that has been made possible thanks to the one and only Donald Trump. Modi's first China visit in 7 years. He landed yesterday, signals a very bold step toward collaboration in tech, investment and sustainability. With stable ties crucial for global peace, the world watches as the tiger and the dragon attempt to chart a unified path forward that nobody would have thought possible maybe a month or two ago.
You know, as we go forward in our programming, and this is important for our viewers, and it's important that Shiv and I remind ourselves of this, there are two words we need to remember. One is disengagement and one is de-escalation. They don't mean the same thing, but one leads to the other. So when we're talking about disengagement, it means soldiers from either side actually moving away from their frontline positions because they're eyeball to eyeball still in many parts along the line of actual control. De-escalation is a larger process. Whether it means that they move 150 kilometers behind, whether there are larger changes on the ground, and whether that is working towards delimiting, or in other words, marking out the boundary between India and China. So disengagement, they move away slightly. De-escalation, the larger process. But we've got all of that and a lot more, Shiv.
It's incredible because the military situation between the two countries has entered a deep freeze, but the two countries have been making noises towards a different approach towards border management. Who knows, maybe there will be a big announcement when the bilateral takes place in just about 90 minutes from now.
Are we having a bet on this?
We can have a bet on that. Let's see
if
there's a big border takeaway.
My bet on this, Shiv, is that it's not going to be very big.
Okay.
There will be economic measures which are announced. They'll talk about air travel.
But they will announce an intention
Just
to have a new approach. To have a new approach to border management.
To figure out the border issue, nothing more than that.
Yeah. Okay. Perhaps that's a...
So that being the case, should I just go home now? Because it's not all that exciting in that case.
Let's find out from Aditya, in fact. Aditya Raj Kaul, our senior executive editor, just on board here at NDTV, is with us live. As you can see, he's on his way to the SCO. Priyanka Deo joins us live from Chicago as well, because obviously the United States is very much part of what's going on right now in Tianjin. Aditya, you're making your way there. Obviously, lots of VIP movements there in Tianjin. So good to see you, in your wheels, getting to the SCO summit to get NDTV the best possible front row coverage of what's really happening. What's the mood like? What's the buzz on the ground before this very, very important handshake?
For the big handshake that's going to happen in a couple of hours, Shiv, I can tell you I've been here for almost more than 30 hours now. The roads are silent. There are not many people on the roads. The traffic is almost out. It almost seems that the Chinese government has asked people to go on a vacation during the SCO summit, as happens during multilaterals, really. But as of now, Prime Minister is here, and the first big meeting that will happen is between the Prime Minister and Xi Jinping, the big handshake. I've been speaking to government sources here who indicate that nothing big, concrete is likely to happen, but certainly it's the beginning of the reset of the ties. Really, there could be some measures on the people-to-people contact, and that would be the grassroots, really, and the foundation of bigger steps that are likely to happen in the next few months. So, SCO leaders meeting also, and the joint declaration that will come out after the SCO meeting is of critical importance, because India is pushing that the entire SCO grouping needs to condemn terrorism, needs to condemn the cross-border terrorism element also. And Shiv, just a few hours ago, Shehbaz Sharif, and his Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar have landed here. So it would be interesting to see SEO grouping, which had not mentioned Pahalgam last time when Defense Minister was here. Will it mention Pahalgam? Unlikely so. But will it condemn terrorism and cross-border terrorism? We'll have to wait and watch.
All right, let's go across to Priyanka Deo, who joins us from Chicago, America, a very important element in all of this. India and the United States are at their lowest in terms of the bilateral relationship with America in a very long period of time, utterly unexpected, but that's the reality now. If there is a broader geostrategic realignment at whatever way, which impacts India and India and China, it obviously impacts the United States as well. How closely is America watching this, Priyanka?
I think Donald Trump has NDTV on live right now, and he's watching the two of you and all of us on screen. This diplomatic engagement shift comes as Washington, under President Donald Trump, as we know, has imposed sweeping tariffs just a day or two ago, 50% in total on India's goods in response to India's continued purchase of oil. Now, as Modi seeks to ease bilateral tensions with China, I think he's going to discuss a couple more things in addition to what Vishnu said. He is going to talk about resuming pilgrimages. He's going to talk about hiking visa facilitation. He's ultimately and simultaneously ensuring that India's strategic autonomy, emphasizing trade, connectivity, and sovereignty, remains in place.
Yeah.
Now, how might Donald Trump respond to this? I would expect a very theatrical and a mixed reaction. He'll likely denounce this rapport between Modi and Xi and Putin, for that matter, as a betrayal of US interests, using his Truth Social platform to amplify his rhetoric. He'll also kind of push his America First trade posture, but there's very little that he can do, because this is one of the few times that India, China, and Russia are sitting at a table where the US and the EU are not present. So I have a feeling that he is watching nonstop.
And let's not forget that phone call that Prime Minister Modi received from the Ukrainian president yesterday. In the middle of all of this, in Tianjin in China, the Prime Minister gets a phone call from the Ukrainian president, and that has set tongues wagging. Aditya, what was that like? You were right there when the Prime Minister got that call. That conversation was unexpected. We didn't know it was going to happen, but it's added a very interesting, tantalizing sort of aspect to what's going on there in Tianjin.
Just like Priyanka was mentioning, Shiv, that, the White House, not just Trump, the entire White House would be watching very closely what happens here at the SCO, the entire, bonhomie between Prime Minister Modi and other leaders, especially tomorrow as well, when Putin and Modi would be meeting. And amidst this, the phone call between Zelensky and Modi, clearly Zelensky has, lost his patience with Trump because in the last 6 months, there have been several assurances that have come in from the White House, but clearly no headway. I mean, Trump, before Jan 20th, came on that promise that he will, within the next 6 months, resolve the crisis, not just between Ukraine and Russia, but in Israel and Hamas as well. But no headway, clearly. There have been, in fact, veiled threats that have been coming in from the White House. But as of now, the entire world closely monitoring the situation here in Xinjiang, in China, to see what will be the outcome of the SCO declaration and how is the economic cooperation really going to work out, particularly between Russia, China, and India?
I think it's interesting, the entire Zelensky phone call, because remember, in as much as we talk about President Xi and Modi meeting in a little while from now, he meets President Putin tomorrow in Tianjin. And if the road to peace does indeed go through New Delhi, to use Peter Navarro's own words, then this is an interesting dynamic, because if the Prime Minister has some sort of a say in persuading the Russian president, right, to sort of push for peace, get the job done, then perhaps the entire business of tariffs on Indian import of Russian oil can be looked at afresh as far as Washington is concerned. My point being, Shiv, that this could be a complex geopolitical play which is taking place at various levels.
It's incredible because all the pieces are at play. That's the incredible thing of what we've seen in the last 24 hours with Priyanka in the US and Aditya and Gauri in China. It's a big chessboard, and I don't think anybody has war-gamed it completely. There's unpredictability in the United States.
We aren't talking about war, my friend.
We're
talking about peace.
Let's be very clear. This is war. This is a trade war. This is a tariff war. India and China have been in a war-like freeze situation in Ladakh for 5 years now. The hope is that this handshake brings in a sense of normalization between the two countries. They are, as Vishnu first reported, going to start resuming flights very soon as well. So this is achhe din as far as India and China is concerned. And Aditya, you know this. You know, achhe din are very few and far between. So this is a strategic shift. Apart from being a reset, it's also a strategic shift because things have changed so dramatically in the last couple of weeks between India and the United States. I don't think either country sort of foresaw that things were going to accelerate this quickly.
Well, certainly diplomacy is not instant noodles, and diplomacy takes time, especially when the Trump tariffs are underway, and you don't know. There's an unpredictability factor really in this new international order. But clearly, here at the SCO summit, we are all prepared, and the first big handshake between the tiger and the dragon is going to happen. What kind of a tango will that be? As you mentioned, Shiv, rightly, and Vishnu, there's been a trust deficit, particularly after Galwan, but also after the Operation Sindoor, where China was coming militarily and sharing intelligence with the Pakistani ISI and the army. In fact, I was mentioning how the Chinese equipment was also used by the Pakistani Lashkar-e-Toiba terrorists during the Pahalgam attack, the Ultra sets or the Alpine app that was used by them. So clearly, there's a trust deficit. There's more that China needs to do. They need to walk the talk. They can't just condemn terrorism and then shield Pakistan time and again. And there needs to be a strong voice against terrorism that needs to come from the SCO platform itself. Apart from that, on the economic cooperation factor, more than the SCO on the sidelines when India and China meet and India and Russia meet, when Modi and Putin meet, there'll be much more to talk about. India has, of course, decided that the trade with Russia will continue as normal. There could be bullying coming in from Trump and the White House, but that does not matter. In fact, the New York Times yesterday reported that Trump has decided not to visit India for the Quad Summit. There's no official confirmation as such till now, either from the White House or India's Ministry of External Affairs, but it is certainly a big decision just hours before the SCO summit begins.
As we'll come back to both of you in a moment, also joined by Sana Hashmi, Dr. Brahma Chelani, and John Rossomando. I'd like to thank all of you very much for being with us. John, let me come to you first. Fairly unthinkable for a lot of us who've observed the differences between India and China for the last several years to have Modi in China and India and China talking peace. How does that reshape the dynamic with Washington?
Well, I think that it's just another case of Washington miscalculating geopolitics. It reminds me a bit of in the last administration where then President Biden went and snubbed the Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman and pushed the Saudis toward China. I think, the United States is a world away from China. China's your next door neighbor. You have to deal with them in any way, shape, or form. And now it's become in India's best interest to try to have the best relationship it can with its next door neighbor. And I think this is going to come back to bite President Trump in the long run.
Go ahead. I was just going to bring Sana in for a moment. Sana, welcome to all of you once again. Thanks for being with NDTV. An important day. Apart from the optics, we are expecting some announcements of some measure. But Sana, I know you have been, and rightly so, skeptical of the India-China handshake. You have raised questions about the circumstances in which they happen. How are you reading today's meeting, and all the surround sound around it?
Thank you, Shiv. Of course, I think there is a lot of misperception about what the visit is. But I think we need to agree on one thing, that this is a milestone development. This is happening after 7 years. And of course, this has been happening, the ongoing rapprochement and this attempt to normalize ties. It has been happening since 2020, since after the Galwan clashes, in fact. So I think that a lot of countries are really linking this with what is happening between US and India. And I think India's agency is never taken into account. And as John also mentioned, that India has all the rights to normalize ties with neighboring countries. And, no one really wants to have a dispute with a country like China. But I think we need to really be not so optimistic about what is going to happen to India-China relations and what are going to be the prospects of the relationship. As in, I feel this is just the first step towards normalizing. I won't even call it a reset. It is just a tactical thaw as of now. And we have to see what concessions is China actually willing to give us. I'm not very hopeful on that. I think we have seen this movie before. But I think what we have to keep doing is to perhaps keep engaging China, but we have to do it on our own terms.
Dr. Brahmachalani, both you and I have been deep skeptics of the relationship with China. Not skeptics, we felt that the concerns we have along the line of actual control, I mean, there's so much evidence of Chinese territorial grabs, Bhutan, the northeast of India, the Ladakh frontier, and now we're trying to make peace with them. I know you would have words of caution, but in any of this, is there any aspect of this that you're optimistic about?
Well, first, I think, and this is not criticism of the coverage of this SCO summit, but with every summit, the coverage in India tends to be a bit gushy. And
no, you're right. You're true. Absolutely true. Go ahead.
And
yeah.
And for example, now we're talking about the handshake between Xi Jinping and Narendra Modi, as if this is the first time they're meeting since the events of 2020. In fact, this is a follow-on on their big meeting in October last year in Kazan, Russia. That's where Modi's Reset 3.0 began. So this is Reset 3.0. The Reset 1.0 of Modi began soon after he became the Prime Minister in 2014 when he hosted Xi Jinping. Xi Jinping was the first important foreign leader he hosted after becoming the Prime Minister. And as you know, Vishnu, that Xi Jinping came to India with an unusual gift, an Chinese incursion into Chumar.
Yeah.
Yet Modi persisted in seeking to normalize relations with Beijing. But this led to the Doklam standoff, and within weeks of the disengagement on the Doklam Plateau, China captured almost the entire Doklam Plateau. Then came Modi's Reset 2.0, which led to the Wuhan summit and the Mahabalipuram summit in India. In fact, in Mahabalipuram, Xi Jinping, in the presence of Modi, said that the idea of Wuhan summit and Mahabalipuram summit, that idea came from Modi. So now we are on Modi's Reset 3.0, which began in Kazan, Russia. So if you look at the broader context, what's happening now, today and tomorrow, is only a continuation of Modi's efforts since 2014. He has been committed to resetting the Sino-Indian relationship. The question, though, is that is India yielding ground? For example, now we keep talking about, and this is a very important thing, we keep talking about the Galwan Valley clash as a defining moment, as a starting point, and both you and Shiv know very well that the Galwan Valley was not the cause of the India-China rupture. It was the consequence of what Beijing did. It was China's stealthy land grabs of April 2020 Ladakh that led to a series of clashes that began on May 1st. May 1st was the first important clash between Chinese and Indian troops, and Galwan only happened in mid-June. And yet, all the media outlets in India are seeking to obscure the real issue, which has still not been resolved, which is China's land grabs. And as you mentioned, Vishnu, that only disengagement has happened. There has been no de-escalation, no de-induction of forces from the frontier, and certainly no rollback of the Chinese incursions. In fact, India has given up its own demand. The army chief said it, that there has to be status quo ante. The MEA said in statements that India will insist on status quo ante as a prerequisite for fully normalizing relations with China. Today, and this isn't even appearing in Indian media. India has quietly given up that prerequisite. Nobody's talking about status quo ante. Instead, we're talking about peace and tranquility along the LAC. So
Right.
in other words, we have moved from status quo ante to peace and tranquility. So who's yielding ground?
Yeah.
No, absolutely. I take your point. Absolutely. I mean, we need. There's all the reasons that you have explained. We need to be wary of this relationship. But John, let me come back to you at this stage. For all the reasons that Brahmachalani mentioned, India and the United States do remain, at one sense, important partners, strategic partners. In a sense, as a buffer, India needs to be a buffer to China as a growing economy. For all these geopolitical reasons which have been outlined. And yet Trump wants his own trade deals with China. He wants a greater engagement with China. And therefore, there is that aspect of it as well. Do you believe that this is a larger churn where America first has to figure out what it wants to do with China? Do you want to be a partner? Do you want to be an adversary? How is Washington looking at Beijing before we can actually figure out how Washington and Delhi can work together, as far as China is concerned?
Well, I think there's a growing consensus in Washington that China is an adversary of the U.S. that aims to undermine the U.S. at every turn. Yet I think there's a certain element, in the Trump camp of trying to appease China to maybe get it to back down on some of its belligerent activities, both militarily and also it's stealing our secrets from our universities and so forth. But I think that's entirely naive. I think the United States and India are both democracies. All the other members of the SCO are authoritarian regimes. But India, stands alone. You're the largest, nation now in Asia. You have more population than China, and you're a growing economy. And I think the United States should be focused on building a closer, friendly relationship with India instead of pushing India into the Chinese sphere.
What I'd like to do very briefly is actually go through a couple of very important talks. We keep talking about Xi and Modi, and that's, of course, at the highest level there is. That said, it's Wang Yi, the Chinese foreign minister, and Ajit Doval, our special representative, and of course our foreign minister as well, who've been engaged in talks. After Galwan in 2022, Wang Yi visited India. Then in September 2020, September 2021, the External Affairs Minister met Wang Yi as well. 2023, on 2 occasions they've met. And 2025, there have been 2 occasions as well. Remember, the foreign minister went to the SCO Foreign Ministers meet in China just a few months back. And now Wang Yi, just a few days back, was here in India. And I would suspect that it's this level of engagement which is actually propelling whatever it is that we may be headed towards. So Sana, would you like to sort of perhaps comment on that? Because what we have seen is Ajit Doval and Wang Yi pretty much reach a consensus that, look, we want to figure out the boundary issue. We want to delimit the boundary. We want to sort out problems in Ladakh and in the East. And now our political leaders have to give us the signal. That to me is the summary of what the two have achieved, which is actually taking things forward a big way. Do you actually believe that everything has been done short of the two sides getting down to the business of actually figuring it out once and for all?
I don't think so. I think it has existed for over 70 years, and I don't really see the boundary dispute is going to be resolved anytime soon. And it's primarily because of China. I think India has shown willingness. India has done whatever it could to convey to China that this is an issue that needs urgent resolution, but we haven't really seen anything on that front. And of course, it's in China's interest to keep it alive, to keep it intact. So I think I don't see a major breakthrough on the border dispute. And of course, all these talks have been happening since at least the 1990s. Special representative talks have been going on since 2003. This is just considered as a confidence building measure. So I think I'm losing hope with respect to confidence building measures. China has been violating all these agreements, confidence building measures. So I have no evidence I can see, and I can say that, now it's not going to happen again. And then I think it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when is it going to happen. So I feel that it's nice, it's good that we are having engagement, we are having dialogue with China. But then I feel somewhere that we have to keep the border dispute on the front. We cannot afford to have the border dispute on the back burner again. Otherwise, we are just living the same story. We are doing the same thing all over again.
Right.
And I think we talk about India's status, it
Yeah.
is just not interest to do the same thing all over again.
Shiv, can I make a
Yeah,
point?
yeah.
I would suggest that when we see President Xi and Prime Minister Modi meeting a little while later on, it's not going to be that euphoric, shaking hands and hugs
Yeah.
and all of that. That's Modi's style,
Yeah,
right?
the photo op.
I would suggest it's going to be much more formal,
Yeah, yeah.
polite, dignified, and that's it.
Yeah.
Because I don't think Delhi knows fully well you don't want to get ahead of yourself.
Correct.
There's too much baggage over there.
Yeah. No, I
want to take it forward.
I wouldn't second guess, the Prime Minister or the diplomatic machine either on China, especially in the context of what has happened in the last 5 years. I agree completely with Dr. Chelani when he says this is Reset 3.0 and that this is a continuation of what happened in Kazan and the handshake there. But let us not play down the fact that what Trump has done in the last couple of weeks has shaped the quality of this engagement. It's not just another India-China engagement. He has completely revamped, shaped, accelerated, catalyzed, whatever you want to say. I don't want to overstep there as well because